everyone. My name is Éadaoin Early and I'm here today to talk to you a bit about my experience with suffering from depression. Sort of the weeks and months leading up to my diagnosis and then how I've dealt with it since. So I'll start by just telling you a bit about myself. I am 28, I am a teacher, I graduated university with a first class degree. I have a beautiful family. A brother and a sister and a mum and dad who are very loving. My family is very large, lots of cousins, lots of friends who had nothing but love and support for me. I am a Gaelic footballer. I am a recently retired gymnast. And in both sports I have won many achievements and captained teams to championships and won solo championships myself in gymnastics. But in 2017 I had probably the scariest but the best experience of my life, and I shared it publicly with everybody on New Year's Day in 2018 because I was determined to leave 2017 behind and start 2018 on a positive note and share my secret struggle with depression. I posted on my Facebook page a post that I had written in the darkest of times. It was just after I had found out what I knew all along, but what the doctor had confirmed, that I was struggling with severe depression. I drove nearly on autopilot from the doctor's surgery past my house to Trella Beach, where I sat on my own for hours with a notebook and a pen, writing what I couldn't put into words, what I struggled to put into words, and how everybody would understand. I thought everybody would understand more through my written words than through my speaking words. And on that day, despite everything that I had achieved in my life until then, getting a permanent job, and I felt like I was the biggest failure in the world. I remember driving home from Dublin, from playing football in Dublin, and thinking the whole way home that nobody would notice if I wasn't on this earth anymore. Nobody would even bat an eyelid. And then that was on a Sunday, and then on the Monday I had everything planned out that this is what I'll do. People will know that I'm struggling when I do this, and this is the only way that I'm going to get out of this mental cycle. But I had planned to crash my car, I'd tip it into the ditch. Nobody would notice because life would continue on as normal without me. But the Coronas were on the radio at the time, and something clicked with them in the lyrics that made me realise that I can't go through with this. I went home and I went to football training that evening as if everything was normal, and I came home, my mummy asked me, "Are you okay?" And I said no. And that's when my journey really began then. But I hadn't been feeling myself for ages. Things that I had enjoyed doing really became a chore. I was going to sleep 5, 6 in the evening just so that I didn't have to deal with the thoughts that were in my head. I didn't have to listen to the voice in my head. It was quiet whenever I was sleeping. Because this wee voice, it was my voice, but it made me question every aspect of my own life. It made me question, was I a good person? Was I a good teacher? Was I a good teammate? Was I as brilliant as everybody said that I was? And when you start questioning yourself enough times, it doesn't become questioning anymore. It just becomes, that's what it is. That's what you start believing, because the voice tells you that thing enough times that you believe it. I hated myself. I hated everything about me. I hated how I looked. I hated my personality. I hated everything. I wanted to change. I wanted to be a different person. I didn't want to be me anymore. And it was thanks to my mummy and my auntie. They booked the appointment at the doctor and forced me to go. And I remember saying to them, if I try to tell you come Friday that I'm fine and I don't need to go to the doctor, please don't believe me. Because that's what I had been doing. I had been going through these awful periods and then maybe convincing myself that I was a drama queen and that everything was fine, there was nothing wrong with me, and that you just needed to get on with your life. So I reluctantly accepted that I needed to take time off work and work on who I am and what was I going to do with my life, how was I going to make myself better. And I'd always been very hard on myself, always achieving the highest standard in everything that I do. I didn't do things by half, and I give something my all. I just have that drive inside me. But the most exhausting part of the whole experience was putting on the front and pretending to everybody that everything's okay. Everything's always okay, and that you're the life and soul of the party, because that's what everyone had known me to be. Nobody had known me to be moping around, and I think that's the scary thing about depression, is that it is such a silent illness and an invisible illness that you can think everything's fine, everything's normal by meeting somebody, but you have no idea what's actually going on in their head. And that's what I started to worry about. The people, maybe when I started to work on myself, the people would think I was a different person because I was different to who I had been before. But that was so exhausting, and I couldn't tell people what was wrong. People outside of my close friendship group or my family, because they had always expected me to be this person, and there was nearly a pressure of not letting people down by turning and being somebody else. But I realised through it all the value of family and friends, and especially my cousins, who have been my best friends since I was younger. They're the most cherished possession that you have, and they will support you no matter what. They will support you to the end. And without my cousins and my family and my friends, I know I wouldn't be here today. But what I have learnt from it all is that asking for help is actually a sign of strength. It's not weakness. People think they can't ask for help because it'll come across as they can't do this on their own, which was something that I would have thought, I can do this on my own. I don't need anyone's help. But actually it's not. It's the bravest, most courageous thing you can ever do, is to ask for help. And I know my life now is a lot different. There were days I didn't want to get out of bed. There were days when I would panic going into a bar, because what if people looked at me differently? Even though at this stage nobody knew. So when I spoke publicly about it at the start of the year, the post was shared thousands of times on Facebook. I maybe thought that it would reach my family and friends, and that was it. And a lot of people had reached out to me and asked for advice and asked what had worked for me. But I actually attended cognitive behaviour therapy to try and work on my own thoughts, which helped me greatly. And what I would have done was plan something for every day or every weekend, so that you had something to look forward to. But a lot of people had been messaging me saying that they were struggling with the same things. They just didn't know how to tell their family and friends, so they allowed their family and friends to read what I had written, because it helped to explain then what they were going through, which was something that was great, because I thought if my post had helped one person either realise that they were struggling or help them talk to their family or go see a doctor, then my struggle was a success. And I was really in two minds about where I'd put my story up, because I didn't want people to label me with that she's crazy. But actually depression is something that needs to be challenged every day. You fight it every day, whether you know it or not. You're fighting every day, and every day somebody else will help you make your fight that wee bit easier. The days that I don't want to do something are fewer and fewer. And it's the toughest journey you will ever do, but it is the best journey you will ever embark on. I was determined enough to not let depression beat me. And part of the stigma that needs to be broken is the fear of talking about your feelings and talking about relationships and talking about how you're feeling. And there are a lot of campaigns out there that are trying to do that right now. But depression doesn't care what age you are, what sex you are, what you've achieved in your life. It is something that will take over your whole life if you let it. We need to break that cycle of people getting so close to the edge that they feel there is no other alternative. It's never something to be embarrassed about. It's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to be ashamed of. It is something that is challenged every day, and something that we need to talk about. My own experience has left me with scars, mentally, physically, emotionally scarred. But I'm never embarrassed of those scars. I wear them with pride, and it is a daily reminder every day that I will not be defeated by this. I will not be defined by my mental health. It is a really scary time when you're going through all this and you don't know where to turn to. But what I would say to people is that there is always somebody to talk to, always. Whether it's a friend, a family member, a stranger on the phone, there is always somebody that you can talk to. You will never be left on your own. And I know I'm not medically trained to give advice, but even if you want to speak to somebody who has gone through the same experiences as you, it is actually really shocking as to how a weight lifts, you feel a weight being lifted off your shoulders as soon as you talk to somebody about how you're feeling. They might not be able to help you, but as soon as you speak out loud about what it is you're going through, you feel so much better. So I just hope anybody listening to this, if you want to read the post that I put up on Facebook, it's still on Facebook, and then a year later I did another post sort of following up on my life since then. So it's all on my Facebook page. Just if you search Éadaoin Early into Facebook, you'll be able to read what I have written. But I hope that anybody who is going through any sort of struggle with their mental health, that they have that strength and that courage and that bravery to ask for help. And it is sort of a cliche saying it's okay not to be okay. I think that gets thrown around an awful lot these days, but it actually is okay not to be okay, and it's perfectly fine to ask for help. It's perfectly fine to admit that you can't do this on your own. So I wish all of you all the best on your journeys. And together we will break the stigma and we will break the cycle.